And now a reading, How I Grew to Hate, Then Pity the Vikings, published October 4th, 2017 in Windy City, Gridiron. I couldn't have been more than 7 years old when a Vikings fan poured beer on me. This was at Soldier Field in either 1988 or 1989. An ass-kicking had occurred. In Week 3, 1988, we lost to the Vikings 31-7. In Week 2, 1989, we beat them 38-7. After one of those two games at Soldier Field, as my parents and brother and I left the stands, an either empowered or embarrassed Vikings fan in the seats above our exit let loose an either angry or anguished Viking cry and dumped beer on a group of Bears fans who were leaving. I was in the path of the poor. A scuffle ensued. My parents used the fracas as a chance to hustle the boys, me and my brother, out of the stadium. My troubles continued in the parking lot. We had to pass a Vikings RV surrounded by purple-clad, beer-soaked Vikings fans. I found myself eyeing them all with suspicion. I wondered if they knew the pourer, and if they did, if they would support him in his efforts against us. They picked up on my malice and sneered at me, a boy of either 6 or 7. And that was that for me and Vikings fans. I already hated Packers fans, but that was duty. This was personal. This was direct aggression toward my well-being. This was the sort of animus that would make a literal Viking duel a literal bear all the way to the afterlife. My Packers beef extended back to 1921. It was bigger than me. My Vikings beef, though, that was all me. I wasn't mad about Fran Tarkenton or celebrating Jim McMahon in '85. My anger toward the Vikings started specifically with the team's fans and manifested itself in teeth-gritting fury toward Denny Green, both Carters, Terry Allen, Warren Moon, Chris Dolman, John Randall, Robert Smith, Jake Reed, and the rest of the jerks. Yet it was hard for me to watch the '98 NFC title game and not have my heart break just a little bit for those fans. I secretly loved the '98 Vikings simply because they were so damn entertaining. Their offense was the most beautiful I'd ever seen. I was a Randall Cunningham fan from the Eagles days, and when his 2-season comeback started in '97 and then came to rip-roaring life in '98, I was all in. I was also a Randy Moss fan at Marshall after I saw him score his touchdown against Army. I wanted Moss on the Bears, and I was devastated when we didn't draft him. I always wanted to see Randall in a Bears uniform, and I always loved Denny Green. The '98 Vikings were special, and I wanted nothing more than to see what would have surely been one of the greatest Super Bowls ever when those Vikings met the defending champion Broncos in Super Bowl 33. The Falcons stopped that with help from Gary Anderson, and a piece of me shuddered for the pain of my purple rivals. Then came Dante Culpepper, who I also liked in college. Then came 41-0. When Brett Favre came to Minnesota, my empathy was with Tony the Packers fan, yet I still kind of dug those '09 Vikings just because I liked the way that Favre turned back the clock once more. So there was something rather horrific seeing Favre turn the clock back even farther to his early league-leading interception days, tossing the Vikings out of a possible NFC-winning field goal against the Saints. And yet my Vikings Schadenfreude ran deep. I took sickening glee in a video of Vikings fans losing their mind as their team blew the game. That was the last year the Vikings were dominant. It's also the year I met Rob Watson. Rob is a Minneapolis native and loyal Vikings fan. Our friend group is 2 Bears fans, 1 Cowboys fan, and Rob, whom we all contact whenever anything goes awry with the Vikings, which is regular. By the time we met, I knew the history of the Vikings, I knew the 4 Super Bowl losses, and their subsequent run of agonizing NFC title games. Yet I couldn't fully feel their pain until I saw it through Rob's eyes. As late as 2012, in fact, I wrote some of my harshest words ever about the Vikings and their fans, calling them feckless beasts and saying that their fans were no better. Quote, they are a dome team masquerading as cold-weather warriors, rarely terrible, sometimes excellent, yet their most famous moments involve successful teams decaying right when victory seemed most assured. That story ran in Red Eye. Rob read it as soon as it went live online. He texted me his complaints immediately after. I then wrote another column apologizing, stating that I had gone too far because I had to acknowledge the Vikings' collective pain and admit that going after fans was too much. Quote, I feel sorry for Vikings fans, probably more so than Cubs fans. We at least have Wrigley Field, beautiful summer afternoons, day drinking, and a national myth to cushion our sadness. Vikings fans have gruesome winters, lukewarm summers, and a football team that leaves scars on every generation of fans without so much as a championship or even a championship surrogate. I followed that up with the classic Sorry Not Sorry. Am I wrong in calling them feckless beasts as fans, not as people? I wrote. Not one bit. Their history has mutated them beyond recognition. Anyhow, for me, the floodgates were now open. Because even 2 weeks later, when I opened a column writing that, quote, there's something about the Vikings that, I don't know, just makes me want to puke, I still felt bad for them. Even after Rob and I led a group of football fans to watch the 2012 season finale of Bears vs. Lions and Vikings vs. Packers that ended with the Vikings knocking the Bears out of the playoffs, and even though our faces looked like this, meow, I still felt bad for them. And you know what? I still do. The Vikings don't get nearly enough credit for their tragic history. I'd put them neck and neck with the Bills and Cardinals for the saddest NFL franchise, though at least older Bills fans recall with great pride the back-to-back AFL championships in 1965 and 1966. Older Lions fans have the 1957 championship, older Browns fans have the 1964 championship, as well as the title days of the 1950s and the 1940s. A Cards fan has to go way back to the 1947 Chicago Cardinals for that team's most recent championship. But the types of losses the Vikings have incurred for every generation of Vikings fan, combined with the lack of understanding of their pain, makes Vikings fandom a trial I dare not undertake. In 2013, I decided to immortalize the pain of Vikings fandom via Rob's memories. I asked him for a ranked list of his worst Vikings memories. This is a man who was born after the Vikings lost the last of their 4 Super Bowls, mind you. Think about Rob's list. Listen to his voice. And when the Vikings come to Soldier Field this Monday night, just know Mitchell Trubisky's debut isn't our only reason to rejoice. And that is a terrible ending because it was written in 2017. And we are 3 rookie quarterbacks past that point. Really just 2, but 3 because Mitch hadn't debuted yet. You get the idea. Bear down!